Hey guys, today we're sewing an oversized zip hoodie with a decent fit and kangaroo pockets. You can find the pattern on my website or my Patreon page. The link is in the video description down below, and for the fastest 5 of you, there's a 20% discount with the code CODY. If you don't want to miss the next sewing tutorials, feel free to subscribe to my channel, and if you like the zip hoodie, I'm very happy about every thumbs up. In this tutorial, I'm gonna use my normal sewing machine, the Singer HD 6335M, but also my overlock from Yuki, the MO50EN. If you only have a normal sewing machine, no problem at all. I'm gonna explain everything within this framework, and all the parts that I'm sewing with the overlock are just a nice extra.
But what do we actually need to sew the zip hoodie? Approximately 2.5 meters of sweat fabric and 1 meter of cuff fabric. Sewing needles, stretch and universal, a normal sewing foot, an edge sewing foot and a zipper sewing foot, an iron, a pair of scissors, a seam ripper, a tape measure, chalk or a colored pencil, thread that matches the color of the fabric, and a 70 centimeter long zipper. Once we have all our utensils together, we need to prepare our pattern. To do this, we lay all the paper pages in front of us in the correct order and cut everything perfectly along the edges. Then all the small individual pieces have to be glued together to form our final pattern pieces using sellotape. For the fabric, I opted for a gray modeled 100% cotton sweat fabric, which keeps you warm and is very comfortable to wear. Perfect for a zip hoodie. We now spread out our fabric in front of us. Pay attention to the weaving direction of the fabric. This should be vertical for all parts. The back and front sections are cut on the fold. This means that you fold your fabric once so wide that the pattern piece fits perfectly in width. Then place the inside of the pattern piece on the folded edge, also known as the fold, pin it in place and cut directly along the edge of the pattern. For the front piece, we simply cut open the folded edge as we are making a zip hoodie. Of course, we also need a right and a left sleeve. It is a good idea to fold the fabric so that you can simply place the sleeve pattern piece on top and cut out the 2 matching pieces directly from the 2 layers. We need a total of 4 pieces for the hood. I would recommend laying the pattern piece twice on 2 layers of fabric so that everything is nicely synchronized. The layers of fabric should be placed wrong sides together. In other words, the fabric sides that will later be on the inside for the hoodie. This is because we need 2 hood pieces for the right side of the head and 2 for the left side. Now we can cut the kangaroo pocket on the fold and then cut through the middle. We also cut our strips, which we will need later to finish the zipper. Now we need the wrist cuffs and the waistband. I'm making these from a sweat fabric with elastane content. The waistband part is cut on the fold. The wrist cuffs are simply cut on top of each other. I would strongly recommend that you use real cuff fabric. As a beginner, I would choose the version with extra cuff fabric, as the later result will look much better, for example when you're sewing stretchy passages for the first time. We will now mark the wrong, i.e. inner side of the fabric if your 2 sides of the fabric are very similar. This prevents you from accidentally sewing the wrong sides of the fabric together. You will now see a line like this on the edge of the sleeve pattern. Mark this spot as there is the same line on the pattern piece for the front. These lines will help you to align the sleeve when you insert it. In the next step, we iron all our cutout parts in an exemplary manner. This is to counteract the subtle shrinkage factor that will occur when the zip hoodie is washed for the first time. It can also counteract the curling of the fabric edges. Make sure you follow all the ironing steps in this video. Believe me, it completely changes the kind of end result of a garment. When I first started sewing, I used to skip a lot, but that's not a good idea in the long run. For the kangaroo bag, start by overlocking the slanted edges on the sides once. We do the same with the straight vertical edge of the strip to neaten the zipper. If you don't have an overlock machine, you can check the operating instructions for your sewing machine to see what kind of overlock stitches your machine has and use them to sew the passage close to the edge. Of course, you can also do it completely without. For the kangaroo pockets, start by folding the slanted opening edges inwards by approximately 1.5 cm and securing them with clips. We do the same on the top edge of the pocket and on the right and left sides. These edges are now ironed once. With a stitch length of 4 and the needle position on the left, we only top stitch the 2 slanted interfacing edges. The kangaroo pocket is now placed on the front of the hoodie and secured with pins and clips. Now we take our edge sewing foot and can easily sew again with stitch length 4, starting from the top edge and ending at the bottom edge of the slanted opening edge. Always remember to lock the seams at the beginning and end. This means that you first make a few stitches back and forth before you start the right seam. We can now lay the front and back right sides together and secure the shoulder sections with clips. These are then sewn together with a stretch stitch and finished with an overlock. You can easily check whether your sewing machine has a stretch stitch function in the operating instructions for your sewing machine. If your machine does not have this function, simply sew the whole thing with a normal straight stitch or with a zigzag stitch. In any case, we can now insert the sleeves. Pay attention to the markings from the beginning. Fasten everything with clips, right sides together. It will look like this. And then sew together with a stretch stitch. I finish the whole thing again with the overlock. Next, place our hoodie, including the sewn on sleeves, right sides together and secure both outer edges with clips. It will look like this. Make sure that the seam at the armpits is nicely lined up. In the next step, these sections are sewn together with a stretch stitch and then overlocked. We now take our two cuffs and fold them right sides together and secure the edges with clips. Next, we sew this passage with a stretch stitch. This type of stitch is simply so important as our cuff pieces will be stretched a lot later and the fabric must be able to stretch with them. A normal straight stitch also works, but trust me, with a stretch stitch you will have far fewer headaches in the long term. The cuffs are now folded in half and placed wrong sides together. Make sure that both sides of the seam are seam to seam and that the overlapping seam allowances are folded to the left and right. At the same time, use a clip to mark the opposite side. This bisection will be important when inserting into the sleeve. Now we want to insert the cuffs. The hoodie is still turned inside out. We attach the round cuff seam to seam. Just make sure that the open side of the cuff is attached to the edge of the sleeve opening with the 2 layers of fabric. We cut our sleeve opening in half and attach the other side of the cuff there. Now we have to make sure that both divided sides are sufficiently stretched when sewing on with a stretch stitch. To do this, pull the fabric apart evenly before and after the presser foot. Finish the excess seam allowance with the overlock. This brings us to the waistband. We attach this to both sides of the front piece, right sides facing. Use the width of our serging strip to make a mark on the waistband. With the needle position in the middle, sew up to this marking. We then fold the waistband down so that you can see the right side of the fabric. Place our serging strip right sides together on the bottom edge of the waistband and make a mark halfway along the serging strip. We then sew this strip in place up to this mark. The half is still loose afterwards. This is how it should be. Now we take our zipper to hand. This is naturally fastened on both sides with the teeth facing outwards, starting at the bottom of the halved waistband. One half of this encloses the zipper and the overlocking strip that we have just sewn on. Once we reach the collar, we make a mark 2 cm below the top edge. At this point, fold the zipper inwards at a 90-degree angle. Now we can take our zipper foot and start sewing the zipper in place. We do this blind, so to speak, by sewing along the serging strip. But don't worry, you can feel the zipper through the strip and also see the rise. Just don't sew too far and not too close along this elevation, which is created by the zipper teeth underneath. Once you reach the folded zipper, you just have to be a little careful. We simply sew over it. Sometimes you have to use the hand wheel and lift the presser foot and move it forward slightly. Once this is done, we can simply cut away the excess from the zipper. And when we turn the corner, we can see the beautiful finish. We now fold our waistband inside out and divide it into 8 equal sections. This way, nothing can go wrong when sewing it on. The subdivision is easy to do by folding it in half. We now divide the same 8 sections on the underside of our previous hoodie. Now pay attention. We attach our waistband right sides together using the markings. We will start sewing it in place at the point where our halved serging strip was sewn to the waistband. You will recognize the seam. When stretching and sewing the waistband in particular, it is important to ensure that all sections are stretched evenly. To do this, always pull the fabric apart before and after the presser foot so that there is no excess fabric anywhere when stretched. Here too, the excess seam allowance is finished with the overlock. Now use the zipper foot to make a top stitch seam along the zipper. Make sure to pull the serging strip, which is on the inside, nicely to the outside. Now we come to the grand finale, the hood. To do this, we take our 4 hood pieces and place 2 pieces on top of each other, right sides together, and secure the rounded outer edge with clips. It will look like this. We sew these passages with a normal straight stitch and a stitch length of 2.5. The needle position is in the middle. Sewing curves requires a lot of practice. I think you get the best result with a stitch length of 2.5. Use the edge as a guide and actively guide the piece of fabric with the curve under the presser foot. When we are finished, turn one of the hoods right side out. This is then inserted, right sides facing, into the other hood that has not been turned. Then we fix the side edge, which will later be the hood opening, with clips. It will look like this. Sew this passage with a straight stitch. Then turn the hood over so that the one hood is inside the other hood, wrong sides facing. The middle seams should then lie nicely on top of each other. And this edge is now secured with clips and then ironed. Now we are going to make a top stitch seam along the entire edge. To do this, we set the stitch length to 4, the needle position is on the left, and the presser foot glides along the edge of the fabric with its own edge. Now mark the center of the collar on the back of the back piece and attach the center of the hood there, with the 2 layers of fabric still open and facing upwards, right sides facing. The hood is now attached along the entire collar from both sides. We then take our zipper cover strip at both ends and attach them along the hood. These are simply turned inwards again right at the end. Sew everything in place all the way around with a straight stitch with the needle position in the middle. And finally, neaten the excess seam allowance with the overlock. And this is the finished zip hoodie. Thanks to the oversize aspect, it has a great fit and is always comfortable to wear. And with the kangaroo pockets, your hands will never freeze either. If you want your zip hoodie to be shorter or longer, you can simply adjust the sections of the side seams that are under the armholes. You can really play around with this and create a new fit for your garment.
If you liked the video, then I'm definitely happy about every thumbs up. Feel free to send me your finished sewing projects via Insta. It's always really cool to see what you guys come up with. Feel free to let me know in the comments how you liked the video, and if you got any questions or suggestions, please let me know. See you at the next video. Until then, have fun sewing.